Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric on our continuing series Unsolved Mysteries, where we take a deep dive in some of the things that are just perplexing to me and we try to solve them. And today we're taking a look at Disruptor on the PlayStation 1. We're taking a look at this game for two different and distinct reasons. One, because it was in development for the 3DO and the 3DO M2 being cancelled on both platforms, and two, we're going to be comparing it against a 1995 CES demo, the 3DO release, showing the potential graphical capabilities of the M2, because there are some theories and a little bit of information that some of the demos that were shown at that trade show actually became Disruptor. Before we get too far involved, if you could do me a huge favor, go down below and hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell. It definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined, we have a Patreon link in the channel description as well if you want to support the channel. But Disruptor in and of itself is a really interesting story. But what I'm looking at is what happened with the 3DO and the 3DO M2. So if we take a look at this ad right here in a French gaming magazine, at the bottom it says 3DO M2. And this game was announced for development as both a 3DO game and a 3DO M2 game. Sadly, like a lot of 3DO things, both versions were canceled. And obviously, we never got the 3DO M2 home console anyway. So what we're taking a look at is footage from the PlayStation 1 game. And it is a really interesting game. It's from Insomniac, and this is one of the first titles they ever developed. They'd go on to make a lot of different games. I'm sure you know who they are. Spyro being the next game that they would have made with Universal after this game had been published. But as far as what exists of the 3DO version, it's really kind of hard to say. But what we're going to transition to, before we talk about that, is this 1995 CES demo from 3DO. And this was showcasing the graphical capabilities of the M2. Now obviously, if you've been watching my channel or seen any other M2 videos, this is pre-rendered. There was no way that the M2 was pulling off this level of graphical capabilities. But the reason we're showing this is because I've had one person who used to work at 3DO as a hardware and software developer tell me that this was based on Disruptor. Now, it doesn't look ultra similar. We're dealing with a fantasy environment versus that sci-fi environment, but it does have a lot of sci-fi elements. And as we get further into the video, we're going to be breaking down what similarities are in here and trying to prove that this demo was at least possibly an early concept for Disruptor, or that the 3DO company took some of the elements from Disruptor and made the CGI demo. It's a really interesting thing to look at. This is one of the first things shown for M2 and at that trade show, the full video. Some of them are actually running on M2 hardware. Bossy the Cow demo and the girl against the T-Rex is real. The driving demo and this first-person shooter demo are definitely CGI renders and weren't ever anything that the M2 was going to be capable of showing. But from a historical standpoint, it's really interesting to just take a look at this. And it's going to be really important once you start comparing it to Disruptor, because we're trying to see, is this Disruptor, and find out what happened to Disruptor on the 3DO. But back to the story I was telling before that video showed. One of the people that has provided me some files, they've asked to go unnamed, and I've said in previous videos I call them my unindicted co-conspirator, said that Disruptor was done for the 3DO almost. If you take a look at the left-hand side of the screen there, you'll see the numbers are the same. That 49, that 60 that you just see were the same type of numbers that were in that CES demo. And even taking a look at the back of the gun, there's a circle in both of them. Now I know I'm kind of, picking at straws here, but you can start seeing some of the similarities, and we're going to be showing more as we go on. But this game was in the 3DO offices, and the person that told me they played it said it was about 70% complete and that it ran better on the 3DO than it did on the finalized PlayStation 1 version. Unfortunately, they did not have a backup of the software, and I've never been able to get in touch with anybody that worked on this for the PlayStation 1 to see if they had the 3DO version, but this did at least at one point exist, and I believe the person that told me. But now you see this guy right here. Just listen to the following. The sound effects are borrowed. Go ahead and listen. I'll be back in just a second. By slowing down the Disruptor clip by 50%, you can tell that that sound effect at least is being borrowed from the 3DO M2 CES demo, because this game came out in '96, so the first instance we can find is going to be that demo. And our glowing red eye kind of mole monster here, a loose comparison, but the big bad guy in that CES demo also has glowing red eyes. So what I'm starting to feel like is that CES demo for the M2 shown by 3DO 1995 was at least borrowing inspiration from Disruptor, if not actually using some of the original concepts for it. Maybe they showed that off as a target render, and then Disruptor came to the M2 when it was done, and that was going to be the origin of this game. Because you'll see here there's different mentions that Disruptor was in development for the M2. People that worked at Insomniac said we were working on it and the development hardware just wasn't coming along quick enough, so we decided to cancel it. And yeah, there have references here as well from the founder of Insomniac Games saying that it was originally in development for the 3DO. And I can confirm that with the person I've worked with that used to work at 3DO saying that they've played this game in their offices. And then you just have other examples here from IGN talking about the history of the game and saying that it was originally in development for the 3DO hardware. So it's a really interesting concept to see how many iterations this game went through and how many different verifications we can have that it existed for the 3DO. And even some of the founders of Insomniac Games said they spent about 7 months developing this for the 3DO M2. Now, of course, like any lead on 3DO M2 software, I've been looking for anything from it for forever, and the only evidence I have that it exists is references from the founders mentioning that the game was in development and that one ad from a French magazine. So it's highly, highly likely that this game no longer exists, at least for the M2, but of course Insomniac being a huge development house, they're not exactly going to be answering my emails anytime soon, I would assume, because I have sent lines of inquiry and haven't seen anything back. But you'll see here we have these orbs coming out, and you have different psyop abilities in Disruptor. And again, just like the glowing-eyed monster, I'm going to be taking a few, not liberties, but assumptions here. And we're going to go back to that CES demo, and you're going to see again that we do have some of these orbs, some of these space-like, sci-fi elements coming into play as well. And that's why I really think if we look at these side by side, you can tell the CES 1995 3DO M2 first-person shooter demo was at least somehow or another based on Disruptor. Whether that was the original 3DO version or whether it was a target render for what was going to be coming out for the M2. Environmentally, they both have a sci-fi feel. One seems to be more medieval sci-fi versus Disruptor being just, hard-boiled sci-fi. But you can definitely tell between one to the other that these games did have some sort of relationship. And using the sound effect comparison and showing that those are identical if you slow Disruptor down by 50%, I think the mystery is at least solved that that 1995 CES demo is based on Disruptor. Now, I don't have a second source to verify that. It's just one person that said when that was made, it was based on Disruptor. There's no documentation or anything else. But you tell me in the comments below, what do you think? What happened to Disruptor for the 3DO and the 3DO M2? Is the CES demo based on Disruptor? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and if you've played the game before. The only other interesting observation that I do have is if you take a look at this PlayStation 1 preview from a French magazine, I think those are 3DO M2 screenshots because you can definitely tell that the graphical fidelity and the texture filtering is much higher than something that the PlayStation 1 could pull off. So I do think at least there are a few screenshots of it running on the 3DO M2. Short of that, thanks so much for watching. We will be back on Sunday and Tuesday with more videos in our mainline series, and we'll have some more 3DO M2 content and some more Unsolved Mysteries episodes coming up as we make them. Short of that, we really appreciate you guys watching. Go down below, hit like, subscribe. We definitely appreciate it, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. We'll see you next time. That guy on the right exploded. Bye-bye.